that show was totally written, the script was prepared, and as we just told you, we even went through the casting process, and suddenly the network pulled the plug on. And I believe it was the week that we were supposed to start shooting. We were supposed to start shooting, or no, it was the week before. We were supposed to start shooting on a Monday, I believe, and they pulled the plug on like Wednesday or Thursday of the previous week. We were never able to get a straight answer as to why. The only thing that we could surmise was that they may have been a little bit uncomfortable with the humor in it. But it was character humor. It wasn't set up in joke, set up in joke. But this Twilly and his predicament and the fact that the stronger of the two wives does take a shot at him and everything, it had a lot of fun in it. And our feeling was that the network was a little bit leery of that, and they wanted to stay with the more darker aspects of the story, of various stories.
One of the other things too was the fact that we had made the captain of the aggro ship a woman, and she was like a Marjorie Main type. She was real feisty and real earthy and very strong. And they came back to us with some notes, and they said, we want you to do this with the character, and this with the character, and this with the character, and this with the character. And we said, but that's going to water it way down. It's not going to be as much fun. And they said, well, that's what we want. So we gave it to them, and they read the script, and they said, well, this doesn't work. Thank you. So
that's typical. I was telling some of you folks last night at the mixer about an incident we had when we wrote Take the Celestra. We had a battle scene, and this attends to standards and practices, some of the problems we had with that part of the network. We had a gun battle going on, if you recall that episode, between Starbuck and Apollo, and I think there were some more good guys there, and then the mutineers. And in order to make the story flow and keep things moving and attend to our B story, which we had going on back on the Galactica, we cut away between the middle of that, or in the middle of that fight, and went back to the Galactica to see what was happening there. Then we came back to the fight, which was continuing, and it went on. Well, we got a call from Standards and Practices saying you have too many incidences of violence, and I don't recall the number we were allowed, or 6 or 7, something like that, and we were 1 over. And I said, well, I don't know how that can be because we've counted them. And, of course, all of this is, we always felt it was a little bit ridiculous anyway, but it was their rules, and we were working for them, so obviously we're going to follow the rules. But we had counted the right number of incidents of violence. We hadn't gone over it, but this woman claimed that we'd gone over it by 1. And come to find out, she had counted this fight as 2 incidences because we had gone away back to the Galactica and then come back to the fight, so she counted that again. And I think I went around and around on the phone with her for about an hour. And it finally got a little bit personal. And so I invited her to come over and write the scripts if she thought she could do it. And then I proceeded to call the gentleman who was in charge of standards and practices. In other words, went over her head, which we were really reluctant to do because it doesn't make the person look good. And it's not good politics and all that sort of thing, but we had to get the script approved. And I talked to him, his name was Don something, I can't remember the last name. And he very quickly said, oh yeah, there's no problem, go ahead, sure. Well, the woman I talked to, as of a couple of years ago, I don't know if she's still there, she was head of standards and practices, so. I haven't forgotten her name, so I'm sure she hasn't forgotten mine either. I hope I don't run into her again.
Another one of the stories that we had was a script called I Have Seen Earth, which was written by Andy Gerdot and Steve Kreinberg. And it was a pretty good script. Jim and I did maybe a 30% rewrite on it, only because some of the situations didn't quite work. And when you're on the inside of the show, you know the ins and outs a lot more than somebody who's outside. You know, things are changing all the time. Basically, I Have Seen Earth was the African Queen, where we had an old derelict spaceship come in with an old prospector on it. And he claimed that he had seen Earth. He's telling all these huge stories. And, of course, Boxy gets enamored with him.
And excuse me, if you think Jack Elam, that's who we were planning to cast in it.
we had worked with him before, and he was wonderful, and we thought, yeah, he would be perfect as this. So when we rewrote the script, we kind of adjusted some of the dialogue to, for his way of speaking. Actually, what has happened is he's been working at a gold mine on a particular planet, and the gold, something in the script, it had to do with the circuitry on the Cylons. So we knew he wanted to get back there for the gold for himself, and obviously there were also some, I think, selenium lakes, so the Galactica could refuel because they were running low on fuel.
Right.
But he doesn't tell Lorne that the Cylons have chased him off the planet. So anyway, he ultimately leaves without permission, and Boxey has snuck aboard. So Boxey gets captured by the Cylons, and it was a whole thing in underground tunnels and people getting captured. It was a lot of fun, though. It was another situation where there were a lot of laughs. Ultimately, Starbuck and Apollo steal a Cylon fighter to get out of there. And I remember one moment that we put in there was Starbuck says, "Well, I think I got the hang of it now." And Apollo says, "Then turn it around, we're flying upside down." So it may have been another situation where they weren't, the network wasn't too sure about the humor or not. We had fun with it, and Starbuck was always so much fun to write. So there's also something else you might be interested in, and that was on the episode Fire in Space, which some of you may like, some of you may not like. I personally liked it because I got to go down to the set and see all those effects going on. People getting blown up and the bridge exploding and guys flying through the air. And, I remember a big crowd of people standing around applauding all of the gags that were going on. In the original script, in the episode that you saw, at the very end, Starbuck and Apollo have to go out on the hull and set these charges in order to bring in the vacuum of space to smother the fire on the ship. And while they're out there, by serendipity, one of them is walking along the rungs, and a rung breaks loose, and he flies off into space. Well, big deal. I mean, to this day, that is not a good ending. It's horrible. At the beginning of the script, at the very beginning, the Cylons are on a kamikaze run, and they crash into the Galactica and they set it on fire. In our original script, the ending is Dirk and Richard are out on the hull, and here come the Cylons again on another kamikaze run. So they're out there, and they got to dodge laser fire. They got to time blowing these things up with this one that's breaking through again. Much more exciting. The network says, "You can't do that." We said, "What? Are you out of your mind?" They said, "No, you have one at the beginning, so why have one at the end? You've already done that." So that's why you see what's there, and it would have been much more exciting.
There was a lot of, as it's referred to as input from the network, and it's not just attended to a show like Galactica, but what it is attended to is usually any show that starts out with a lot of fanfare or is a big hit in some way. And as this show started, we were on not us personally, but the show was on the cover of Time magazine and Life magazine, and the hype that went along with it, the publicity, was tremendous. And of course, it had followed on the heels of some little movie that George Lucas had done. I can't remember what it was. So the Galactica was greatly anticipated, and at the outset of the show, the ratings were phenomenal. And whenever you get on a show like that, everybody wants to put their mark on it and have their fingerprints on it and be associated with it. And usually from the network perspective, and this is not to indict anyone at the network, that's not it. But
Yeah, let's indict them.
okay, let's indict them.
Yeah.
But the point is, we've also known some very fine, talented people that have worked for the networks. I think we knew both of them. Anyway, so in a show like Galactica, there was no way to avoid all of this input. We thought of it as interference, because everybody wanted to bring their own personal point of view to it, and quite often, in fact, most of the time, it was pushed upon us by people from the network again, who really belonged in accounting or, you know, some other, it wasn't their talent was not in writing or creating stories or producing film. So that was always kind of an ongoing problem for us. Yeah.
Let me just add, too, in summing that up, the fact that what we wanted to do with the stories is get more people stories about who was there on the Galactica. You can have life and death situations without having Cylons or space pirates or Bores or whatever. I just thought it was always more interesting. What are those other ships like? And that's what we were trying to do. You know, then the next week we'd be surprised and we've got stormtroopers in an episode. I think what Glenn was trying to do in those episodes was kind of get away from the Cylons and try and find some other kind of threat. I think if we had gone on to a second season, hopefully you would have seen Twilly, and I have seen Earth, I think more internal conflict kind of thing. Yes, I hope so.
I was just wondering whether those scripts, those story ideas you're talking about that didn't get done, whether it's possible to get copies of those as collector's items or anything?
I know I have copies of them. I think there's some around. I know that I've talked to some people that say, well, I've got a version of this, or I don't know how the hell they got them.
You might try writing to Universal. I don't know this to be absolutely true, but I have a feeling they don't throw anything away. They keep track of everything.
Excuse me.
I was just going to say, so I don't know whether they would respond or not, but that would be my suggestion. I have copies of this somewhere too, but if you saw my office, it would probably take me a month to sort everything out and find them.
Or a couple of grenades.
No, that's already happened.
I think something else. There's if you have a computer, there's a Prodigy in the arts and entertainment area has a bulletin board for Galactica. That's how I found out about this. And a lot of people on there you can talk to and ask, and somebody knows somebody, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a